Whoa, Dilly. That hose is looking pretty dirty. When was it used last?
I don't know. Hey, Danny, do you know?
I think we're down on assignment in Nevada. Why does it matter?
Well, earlier this year I was on assignment up in Montana, and after speaking with a resource advisor, learned that there are certain aquatic invasive species, whether it's plants, animals, or pathogens, and they'll actually hitchhike their way on our water supply.
So what?
So, once they get established in different water sources, they can actually ruin the entire ecosystem there. Not only that, they can also ruin any chances of recreational activities like swimming, boating, and fishing. There's even quagga and zebra mussels that can clog water pipes, ruining irrigation systems and hydropower.
Oh, that makes sense because growing up we used to go fishing and boating at the local lake with my family, and we can't do that anymore because it got so gunked up with water milfoil, so it's kind of a bummer.
Aquatic invasive species, or AIS, are harmful, non-native plants, animals, and microorganisms living in aquatic habitats that damage or threaten commercial, agricultural, and recreational activities. AIS can be transported via firefighting equipment that contacts or transports untreated water, such as portable pumps, drafting hardware, in the internal tanks of engines and water tenders. Avoidance and decontamination can prevent the spread of these organisms.
That's terrible. I've heard about invasive mussels spreading around the country. Is there anything we can do to remove them?
You know, that resource advisor was talking about how once they're introduced, they're almost impossible to eradicate from that water source. It's pretty easy to see how long-lasting those impacts are.
I had no idea aquatic invasive species were such a problem. It sounds like we have to do our part to prevent the spread in the first place. How do fire operations spread aquatic invasive species?
Draft hoses and foot valves can spread aquatic invasive plants, animals, and pathogens from one drafting source to another. It only takes one Eurasian water milfoil fragment to start an invasion. Here, you can see simulated milfoil being transferred from a dirty foot valve to a clean, uninfested water body. Before moving to a new water source, external and internal surfaces of the drafting hose and foot valve must be decontaminated using one of three methods. The first decontamination method is hot power washing. All surfaces must be sprayed with water from a heated pressure washer for at least 2 minutes at a temperature of 140 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. The second decontamination method is sun drying, which is very effective after mud or plant matter is removed from draft hoses and foot valves. Lay drafting hoses and foot valves out to dry in the hot sun. The gear should dry until completely dry to the touch. Chemical decontamination is a third method. If other options aren't available, the drafting hose and foot valve may be coiled and submerged in a bucket filled with disinfectant. Items should be allowed to soak for 10 minutes. The items may also be decontaminated by spray application of disinfectant with a backpack pump or spray bottle. Spray each surface for 5 seconds and let stand for 10 minutes. Items that have been soaked in or sprayed with chemical solution must be rinsed with clean water before storage or returned to service. Chemical disinfectants, such as bleach and quaternary ammonium compounds, though effective, can be hazardous, corrosive, and difficult to dispose of. Make sure you use the concentrations recommended in the guidance, and only household amounts, a few gallons. Otherwise, the solution is hard to dispose of. Always consult the product label to determine appropriate PPE and procedures for proper chemical use and disposal. Always carry a spare draft hose that is clean and dry. This way, you can clean used gear later when you have time. You may choose to tie flagging around draft hoses that need to be decontaminated, but it should be marked to indicate a need for cleaning as opposed to repair. AIS can survive in the residual water of fire engine and water tender tanks for days. These organisms can be inadvertently introduced into a clean body of water if tank water is used to prime pumps and foot valves are not operational. Here, we can see simulated AIS-infected, dyed tank water leaking through a defective foot valve. Always prime the pump with water from the drafting source. Do not use water from the potentially infected engine tank. If you prime from source water, there is no need to ever clean any internal engine or tender tank, provided your foot valve is operating properly. Fill the drafting hose with a bucket of water from your source, then start the pump. Additionally, don't leave the draft hose full with foot valve engaged and submerged in a water source when not pumping. As extra protection against tank leakage, screw foot valves snugly onto draft hoses to ensure they are fully sealed. Rest the foot valve on a shovel head before placing it in the water source for sediment-free operation. This reduces potential for sucking up AIS. AIS surviving in the residual water of engine and tender tanks can be unintentionally introduced to a clean lake, river, or stream by allowing tank water to overflow into the drafting source. Care should be taken to prevent overfilling and driving away on steep inclines, as this can have the same result. Don't overfill your engine tank. Have a crew member monitor how full your tank is to prevent overfilling or spilling when you pull away from a drafting source.
Okay, you can cut it!
Drop it!
Portable pumps and drafting equipment can also transfer AIS to clean bodies through a dirty draft hose and foot valve, or through residual water within the pump leaking out through a defective foot valve. Use a single pump to top fill multiple engines and tenders. This reduces the amount of drafting gear potentially exposed to AIS. When using portable pumps, be sure to test the foot valve to ensure it is not leaking and make sure it is fully tightened. Remove drain plugs from portable pumps to empty water from the pump housing before moving to a new water source. On the fire line, don't apply engine water where it can enter a lake, river, stream, or wetland. If you follow this rule, there is no need to decontaminate fire line hoses, nozzles, or valves. If there is a need to apply water to a fire in a riparian or streamside area, be sure to use water from that water body if possible.
Wow, I can't believe fire operations are at such a high risk of spreading aquatic invasive species.
Yeah, it's interesting to find that the effects of irresponsible water handling are much more devastating than wildfires themselves.
The good news is, there's measures we can take to stop the spread of aquatic invasive species. We just have to put them into practice and spread the word.
The Guide to Preventing Aquatic Invasive Species Transport by Wildland Fire Operations is available to help wildland firefighters avoid the spread of AIS. It describes best management practices to prevent contact with and spread of invasive species and best procedures for decontaminating equipment, many of which you have just seen demonstrated. An electronic version of the guide can be found on the NWCG Publications website for easy reference. Please visit the Invasive Species Subcommittee's website for equipment bulletins, tech tips, and updated guidance and resources.